Nathan, I hate to say it, but actually I don't. I'm going to take glee in it. CVTs are dead, and they just don't know it.
No, you are wrong.
All right, we're going to have a little bit of an argument here, Nathan, because I'm going to give you the top 5 reasons why I think CVTs are the walking, well, driving dead when you think about it. And let's get right to it. Number 5, the 10-speed transmission. Once upon a time, when there were maybe, let's say, half a dozen gears, then a CVT made sense. But now with a 10-speed, you get basically the same fuel economy of a CVT with the driving pleasure of a regular transmission.
Well, the bottom line is that CVTs, now listen guys, I'm not advocating for the fun of CVTs. However, they're extremely fuel efficient. They are. And if you look at the vehicles that they're put in, some of the top numbers that you see next to hybrids is CVT-based vehicles.
Yes, and some of the most boring cars out there are also CVT-based vehicles.
I'm not going to say you're wrong about that, of course. But in terms of what regular customers drive, what people want is really good fuel economy, and that's what they get with a CVT.
Yeah, if you graphed it right, on one axis of the graph would be fun to drive, and on the other axis would be horrible to drive or fuel efficient, then that's going to be the graph for a CVT.
All right, let's continue.
All right, number 4. What's the company that has promoted CVTs the most throughout the last 10 years?
I'm going to say Nissan.
Exactly, and Nissan is in trouble. Nissan is in deep trouble. They have not only leadership issues, but in America specifically, they have sales issues, right? They've kind of went down the road of selling their vehicles at a great discount, which means you get good numbers, but you don't get great profits. They also went down the road of doing, let's call it rent-a-car sales.
Yeah.
And the one company that has become synonymous with continuously variable transmissions is now in trouble.
They are. However, you have to think about the customer who buys a vehicle that has a CVT. Now, granted, they've put them in everything. The only things that they haven't put them in there are basically sports cars and trucks. And we kind of hope that they don't do that for various reasons. But in terms of what you get with the CVT, now we're talking about the customer, not us.
Right.
We're talking about the customer, a regular consumer. One thing about CVTs is that they are very smooth shifting. In fact, they're so smooth shifting that they've had to fake gears in order to make people feel like they're driving an automatic transmission. And over the years, Nissan has improved their CVT. It is a better unit than it used to be, and it feels a little bit more like an automatic transmission.
All right, number 3, Nathan, is a question for you.
Okay.
You used to own a Nissan, right?
I still do.
Yeah, and that Nissan is a what?
It's a Pathfinder.
And what generation is that?
It's
the one you want. It's
the one you want.
It's not the current generation, is it?
Yeah, it's the truck-based one with independent rear suspension, and yes, it has an automatic transmission, not a CVT. It's a completely different vehicle than the current Pathfinder.
Yeah, so Nissan started with unibody, then they went to body-on-frame, unibody, body-on-frame, or maybe the other way around. But right now, they're back to unibody.
Yeah.
And the Pathfinder has a horrible reputation, mainly because of the CVT in it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
it doesn't work in a crossover. And it doesn't work in anything as big as a Pathfinder.
Yeah. Okay. How do I put this? First of all, we're going to go back to efficiency and what customers want. Now, a lot of customers seem to be okay with it. Remember, the Nissan Rogue and the Rogue Sport combined do make up some of the best sales that Nissan has, and they're some of the best-selling crossovers out there. That we know. People are buying them. Also, fleets are buying them, too. That's one of the reasons why the numbers are so good. And one of the reasons why is because people are not taking these vehicles off-road. They're not off-road vehicles. They go in snow. And in snow and in inclement weather, a CVT-based vehicle works okay. In terms of what the vehicle can do with economy, as I said before, quite good. Nissan has a not so great reputation with their CVTs currently, but that doesn't mean that all CVTs are bad. Look, I've driven the Honda Civic recently and also the Honda Fit, two of the best vehicles that have a CVT option, and they work really well. Toyota has a great CVT. there are other car companies out there that are moving towards CVTs as well. Now think about that. I know the Germans don't do CVTs. We all know that. But the Germans do build very expensive transmissions.
Let's talk about how a CVT works compared to a regular transmission, right?
Indeed.
So a CVT is a cone.
Yep.
And there's a belt that goes up and down the cone.
Right, usually it's two cones, quite often, yeah.
And a regular transmission, of course, is this very complicated bit of engineering.
Like a 10-speed?
Like a 10-speed, with a lot of gears and a lot of bits and pieces. I mean, it's probably the most complicated part of your car. It probably has more moving bits and pieces than your engine does.
Well, I'd say pretty close with the 10-speed, yeah.
So, from an engineering point of view, the 10-speed and the regular transmission is just a much more elegant, much more interesting solution, I think.
Interesting that you put it that way.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to take you on a little trip here. Back in World War II, Germans had a particular machine gun. It was a beautiful machine gun. It worked great, but it had a lot of moving parts. It was very difficult to repair and difficult to maintain. However, the Americans had the Thompson 45. Very simple gun, very easy to repair, very reliable. Now, they both killed. They both did the very same job, but one was a little bit more reliable and easier to use than the other. Now, when it comes to CVTs, the idea behind the CVT is actually very good. It is, because when you think about it, less moving parts, less weight, much easier to repair in theory. Unfortunately, it hasn't quite worked out that way for certain car companies. But in terms of how you build a CVT and how simple it is, really, if you think about it, you've got just a couple moving parts with a belt going up and down. It's a really slick idea that just, it needs a little bit more time to really mature. But in many cases, including, as I said, Honda, they build very good CVTs that feel like automatic transmissions.
Nathan, only you could compare a CVT to a machine gun.
Yeah, there I go.
All right. Another reason that CVTs are the walking dead are, of course, this huge crossover / SUV craze. Today, everybody wants a crossover SUV, and the reason they want them is because they want to go off-road. But without a torque converter, it's not good going off-road, right? We've proved that a CVT is not a happy piece of equipment when it's stressed out in a very difficult off-road type situation. When the wheels don't have traction, for the most part, talking about Subaru now, it shuts power to the wheels because they don't want to basically burn the...
They don't want to fry it, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross with less horsepower, less ground clearance, and a CVT made it up stage 3. The Honda Pilot made it up stage 3, so it should be doable. Volkswagen Atlas is another one, right? These are crossovers.
See, I don't think it's about torque at all. I think this car has plenty of torque. I think it's really about the CVT. I think what happens is the CVT cuts power because it doesn't want to slip, it doesn't want to destroy itself. And you can have the car floored. It's got tons of torque. It just won't send the power to the wheels.
Well, I think it's even more specifically this CVT.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
the Mitsubishi had a CVT, and that allowed all sorts of slippage. But this one is just not having it.
That's intelligent engineering for you, which in some cases is a good thing, because some people are just idiots when they try to do off-roading and they really burn things up and they would destroy a regular transmission. So I get the concept behind it. However, not all car companies do that. We recently had the opportunity to take a Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross off-road onto Goldmine Hill, and it went up against a Jeep Compass. Now, we were really surprised with the fact that that thing absolutely kicked ass on that hill, with really crappy tires, by the way, and it had a CVT. In fact, almost every product from Mitsubishi has a CVT, with the exception of their Mirage. I think you can get it with a high-speed manual transmission. The point is that it can still work, but it's not ideal. One of the issues, and you're absolutely right, is you don't want to burn them up. So one of the things about friction and the way a belt works inside of two spools is that you don't want that to sit there and just roast itself trying to figure out how to get power to the wheels. Whereas in other types of, a torque converter or a proper manual transmission where everything can lock up, very different story.
All right, and the number one reason why CVTs are dead as a doornail, Nathan, is because of EVs. EVs are the next and biggest coming thing, and as you know, electric vehicles do not have any transmission whatsoever. It just
direct drive
right from the battery to the motor to the wheels.
And I'm going to say it again. No, you're wrong, because not everybody wants an EV. And I don't think, and even in the near future, everybody's going to be buying EVs. Now look, hybrids have proven themselves, and many hybrids have CVTs, that they've proven themselves to be very efficient. I mean, didn't you guys just do a video where you had a Prius up against R3? And the Prius did really well.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes, the Prius did really well.
And by the way, you can see that video on TFL
But it wasn't the one that was more fun to drive.
You go back to the fun part, and I'm not disagreeing with you on the fun part, of course. But then again, I would say screw them all. Get a manual transmission, then you're having a lot of fun. Which there's only like 4% of the cars sold today have manual transmissions. But going back to this, the bottom line here is, yes, EVs are becoming more popular, and there will be more EV sales, but that will be compensated by people who want to buy less expensive, and they will be for a while, hybrids.
Well, Ethan, thank you guys for watching this episode of Know You're Wrong. And I think out of this, there's one thing we can agree upon. That is, if you want a great transmission, get a manual.
Yep. Sorry, guys, that's the truth. But I do believe that CVTs have improved. And I think that lots of car companies are going to maintain using them for quite some time.
And I hate to say this, but I think really the ones that are dead are the manual transmissions.
Yeah, they really are. Some of the new numbers out there are really sad. Guys, if you want really good security and you don't want people stealing your car, buy a manual.
Yeah, there you go. Who's going to be able to drive?
Nobody.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. As always, this is Roman.
And Nathan.
Saying check out tflcar.com for more news, views, and of course, Know You're Wrong, Nathan. CVTs, unfortunately, are alive, but I guess you're right. Manuals are dead. Reviews. See you guys next time.
See
Ciao.
ya.